live.
It's a live.
It's a live.
As opposed to a simulation.
A simulated live. A semi-live. A partial live.
All of those possibilities.
Hang on.
Oh, my.
Somehow it gets to be Sunday, and I say to myself, how is it Sunday again? And how many Sundays are there in a week? Because it feels like there are a lot of them. Do you ever get that?
Well, last week, not this past week, last week was the first time in a long time during this period that we're all slogging through when I literally did lose track of days.
Oh, yeah. That's not the first time. Come on now.
First time I'm willing to admit.
There you go. Give me your fan. Pretty please.
That
I am melting. I don't know about you guys, but it is toasty where we are.
Well, let's not lord that over.
I know. Well, that's what's so funny.
People who are buried under snow.
That's the thing. There's so much snow in so many places, and here it's just been warm. So here we are in Los Angeles. For those of you.
Oh yeah, and to do the hi, I'm Leonard Maltin.
And I'm Jessie Maltin. Hello.
She's my daughter.
I'm his daughter. He's my father, because that's how that works. Rip Howard Hessmann.
Oh yes, yes. An actor who, a good actor who had a fling with stardom on a show called WKRP in Cincinnati.
Okay.
And he did other things too.
Yeah.
But that's what he's largely remembered for. And yet another show business figure to depart.
Yes.
Our midst.
Quentin says, greetings from Rome, and hello to you, beautiful Rome.
Wow.
My goodness.
Wow.
I miss traveling. I miss traveling so much. And of the things that the pandemic obviously has prevented us from doing, it's traveling.
Yeah.
And it's one of our favorite things. And normally we go to film festivals all over the world. We're so lucky that we get to travel and go to film festivals all over the world. And this is the longest we've been in one place. I mean, in my life, this is the longest I've been in one place. Genuinely, ever since I was little, we've traveled. Really, I think my first film type festival, I was some weeks old.
Yeah, we took you to the Cinecon in Minneapolis, the one that Ron and Chris Hall ran, and you were, I think, 2 months old.
Yeah, I remember it well. It's everybody has the things that are a part of their life, a part of their family, and for us, travel is just a huge piece of it. And so it is very strange to not travel, to not see friends, to not go to film festivals. Sundance is sort of ending. I mean, well, yeah, it's ended. They sped it all up. You can still see some of the movies. You can still buy tickets to some of the films, but there have been lists made already of what's coming out. A number of films have gotten distribution, which is great. But again, it's just all sort of.
I know it's weird.
Virtual is just not.
This is the first week. I taught my third class of the semester this week at USC, and it was the first one in person, boots on the ground.
Yeah.
In our home, our auditorium
at
that
USC.
We call home at USC with 300 some students.
Yeah.
And of course, our guest was on Zoom.
Yes, which is so funny.
Just the way it goes.
But and that was a big deal because USC changed it. So the first 2 classes of the semester were virtual. And then they decided that as the third week approached, they felt safe enough to put everybody together.
And of course, everybody's been triple vaxxed.
Yeah, all of that good stuff.
We're all wearing masks.
But it's still, and imagine that for my dad. He's looking out into a sea of masked kids.
Yeah.
And, the whole point of the class and what you enjoy so much, my dad's been teaching at USC for 23 years. And one of the things that you enjoy most is talking to the kids, having these interactions. And it's very strange when you can't do that, but it is what it is.
It is.
At least it's in person at all.
Yes.
Because, the last year wasn't. And it's all a bit of madness.
And I got to do what I
your
now
favorite
do
thing
on the first night of every semester. some years ago, as I was coming and going to work at Entertainment Tonight at Paramount, our building had a loading dock in the back, and so occasionally things would there'd be dumpsters there.
I know.
And you never know what you'd find.
My dad fancy dumpster dived. So it wasn't like a dumpster full of like food.
There were 3 rolls of 35 millimeter leader.
Mm-hmm.
That is to say, solid color leader on cores. And they weren't defaced with sandwich leftovers.
Yeah.
They were clean. And they look cool. I said,
they are cool.
Well, I'm going to take these. So I did. And they were in our garage for years and years and years. And then I always show a 16 millimeter print of a Betty Boop cartoon on the first night of class. I think I'm the only one still using that 16 millimeter projector in our projection
booth. Yes, you would be.
Yeah, it's an educated guess. And so I realized that a lot of the students, and we have many students who are not film majors too, have no acquaintance with actual film.
Yeah.
And
well, we talk about this in general because it is fascinating that we still require icons to express something, even though most things are digital. But you still need something. It's sort of like the fact that when you take a photo on your phone, it has a shutter click sound.
Yeah.
Do young people know what that is? Do they know that it's a shutter click? Yeah.
So all the iconography associated with movies is still reels.
So film reel or a 3
sprocket hole.
Or a camera, an old fashioned camera.
Yeah, tripod. Yeah.
Tripod. That's still what they use because what else can you possibly express it as?
Yeah.
So he brings this film in.
So anyway, so I said, well, I should show them what we're actually using to project the film, show them 16 millimeter. And I thought, wait a minute, how to show them 35 millimeter, which is the theatrical film format. And I brought one of those rolls of leader and a scissors. And I said, well, during our break, we take a 10-minute break early on in the class. I said, if you'd like to come up and snip off a piece of film, just for the hell of it, feel free.
Yeah.
Use it as a bookmark. Amuse
whatever
your friends,
want.
whatever you want to do. Well, you'd think I was giving away little nuggets of gold from Fort Knox.
They love it so much.
They are so grateful. I'm not making fun of it. I'm delighted.
Yeah.
It's opening a little window for them.
Yeah.
And they thank me.
They love it. They love it. They really do. They line up. They line up to cut pieces, and it's just
so that's great.
Incredibly cool. Lynn, I'm so glad that you're getting over your COVID. I had COVID now. It's almost 2 years ago. And I still don't have my sense of smell back. I'm one of those long haulers, and my breathing is still a bit affected. So that's super fun. I'm so glad that you're better than you were. It's a scary thing. CJ, we have not watched that many of the Sundance films, though my dad did just show one in his class.
We had one of the films that got a lot of attention called Emergency. It's an expanded... it's a film that was expanded from a short that won the Grand Jury Prize in 2018.
Yeah.
Directed by Carrie Williams and written by K.D. Davila, who was our guest. And she's a USC MFA.
A lot of alumni. A lot of alumni come through.
And she was a very good guest and very interesting. And she's just directed her first short, which is now shortlisted for an Academy Award.
Which is very, very cool.
So,
and Emergency has been purchased by Amazon. So fingers crossed it will be up and alive very soon.
Maybe it's even now, I don't know.
No, I think I would have seen.
Okay.
They usually send out press releases at the end. Because
there are no well-known actors in it, but they're all good.
Yeah.
And the film is very good.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I didn't read a word about it, which is my favorite way to see any movie.
Yeah.
Because this film kind of sneaks up on you. And I don't want to say much more.
And all that I'd read was just that a lot of our friends were loving it. And as I say, I mean, that's the fun part of film festivals is normally, you bump into a friend, you're going between theaters and you see a friend and you say, so what have you liked? Or you're standing in line with complete strangers and you're saying to each other, so what have you seen? What have you liked? And somebody will go, well, I'm a really big fan of such and such. And you think, well, you know what? Actually, I can fit that into my schedule when I'm going to go. And you have these incredible discoveries. And sometimes they're bad and sometimes they're great. And you never know. My favorite was we were at Fantastic Fest. My dad's actually wearing a Fantastic Fest shirt today, which takes place in Austin at the Alamo Drafthouse Lamar, and one of our all-time favorite film festivals, because it's just some of the best people and a fantastic atmosphere. Yeah, I went back to the hotel to take a nap, and you stayed, and you saw Kumail Nanjiani.
Yeah.
And Jonah Ray, who we are friendly-ish with, and our old pal Edgar Wright. And the three of them said, we're going to go see the Babadook. Do you want to come with us? So I wake up from a nap to my dad saying, I'm going to see the Babadook with Kumail and Jonah and Edgar Wright. And I was like, oh, I'm never napping again. I am never in my life napping again. You got to be kidding me. So it's that kind of fun and liveliness that just
and we made some wonderful discoveries there.
Oh yeah,
over the years.
And and it's true. Some films don't get distribution, so or they take years.
Yeah, well,
I
don't know about you. I have not encountered any of those pet films of ours again,
and not in a major way.
Yeah,
not in a major.
I know
way.
Some of them had lives in their home countries, country of origin. But if not for seeing them, in Austin at that festival, they would be unknown to me.
Brian, who says friendly-ish? I do. I say friendly-ish. It's a thing. There are a lot of people that you're friendly with. You're not friends. They're not your buddies. But you see each other and you enjoy each other's company and you're friendly-ish. That's all. It's
if it's not in the dictionary, well, then you've just coined
thank you. I try
a word.
Anyway, so that's again a massive part of our life that we're really missing. And so everything's been shifted because of the Olympics, so that's a big piece of it. Santa Barbara Film Festival would normally be happening now, and it is not happening until March. But that's because they moved because of the Olympics, and
the Oscar season that will not end.
Yeah, the Oscar season now goes to the end of March.
The ballots are now out.
Yes,
as of, I think, Friday.
You can vote, but man, oh man, it's all sort of kerfuffle, and we'll see what happens with the different things that were moved around, that were sort of shifted. We'll see what happens with it, because nobody knows is the reality. Nobody knows anything. One of the big things, though, happening here is that we are hosting the Super Bowl. I say we. In our backyard, we're hosting the Super Bowl. Los Angeles is hosting the Super Bowl this year. And there's a possibility that the LA Rams will be one of the teams. I think today is the game. I know a lot about sports. I think today is the game that will determine that, but I could completely be wrong. But either way, that's a pretty massive thing going on here.
I think you may be right.
I think I may be right. Yeah. There you go. Yep. Thank you. Yes. I can say that with confidence, of course.
A perfect stranger.
It's not a perfect stranger. It's Frank. And I love that you know. So that's a major thing happening here. And there are a lot of events tied into that in this city. And we're waiting to see if they take place, because so many of our friends work these different kinds of things, including my husband, who again does lighting. So we're waiting to see if he's going to be, putting up light bulbs or not. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I was just thinking I missed Oscar nominations. No, everything was moved. Everything was moved.
February 8th, the announcement will be made.
Yeah. So we'll see. And again, the other conversation with that a lot of people have been having. So prior to pandemic craziness, there was this massive conversation going on about whether or not streaming films that went direct to a streaming platform would be considered for Academy Awards.
A sidebar. The Directors Guild, the Writers Guild, and the Producers Guild all announced their award nominees.
Yeah.
And as it has been true for a while now, and it's full of holes.
Yeah.
In the sense that films that you would be certain would be nominated are not even mentioned, because if they were not signatory to the Writers Guild or the Producers Guild, they don't qualify.
It's a whole thing.
They all are signatory, apparently, to the Directors Guild. So the 5 Directors Guild nominees, who often are considered a forecast of the Oscar Best Picture nominees, were there. But the other 2 guilds, those lists are full of asterisks.
Yeah. And I will say, if you are someone who enjoys this kind of stuff, if you're someone who enjoys the awards stuff, our actual friend, not friendly-ish, but our actual friend, Scott Feinberg, is Mr. Awards. And
at the Hollywood Reporter.
He's great at discussing that. And he puts up lots of different pieces. He writes and he posts all sorts of pieces about that.
And my colleague Glenn Whipp does the same at the LA Times.
Yep.
Covers the scene very, very well.
But yes, so prior to the end times, there was this whole conversation about
and of course Pete Hammond.
Well, yes,
at Deadline.
yes,
yeah.
Pete Hammond, his best friend, my godfather at Deadline. But basically, the conversation was, can a film, and we've told you guys about this before, for a movie to be considered for the Oscars specifically, some of the others too, but really the Oscars, it has to have played in LA and New York.
In a theater.
For 5 days. And the thing is this, you could put it in any theater you want. It can be, the 3rd Street, middle of nowhere, no one hears about it, no one knows it exists theater. It just has to play.
And available for the public too.
Well, which is what a theater, you have to be able to. That's what I'm saying, yeah. So that's essentially been the rule. And lots of people discuss, do we have to change that now? Because some films just go straight to on demand, or they're, on streaming platforms. Netflix was obviously a big part of that conversation, and several of their films ended up showing in theaters. Something like Roma was shown in theaters, so it could be considered.
Right. In order to qualify.
So there we're having this whole back and forth that's been going on. Then you get to the pandemic, and they go, well, people can't go to movie theaters. So I guess we can't hold everything to that same standard.
And a lot of people, for variety of reasons, don't feel comfortable going to movie theaters. No. Well, you said can't.
Well, yes. For a while it was can't because they were closed.
Right.
And then it became didn't want to for obvious reasons. Yeah. So they were in this position of going, well, I guess we have to just accept films that are streaming. That just has to be what we do. And so now sort of the next part of that conversation is it going to stay that way? Have they changed it for good? And the reality is, I don't think we'll know. I don't think we'll really know until.
Well, the streamers have taken such a big bite.
Yeah.
They are. If you took away their films and their support for those films, there'd be nothing to discuss.
Yeah.
There'd be no output to discuss for the last year, or even the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And so it's not much of a debate.
Yeah.
And they're here to stay.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
Did you take your medication
early?
Did. Good boy. All right.
I forgot to turn off.
Yeah. I'm sorry. My dad's alarm went off on his phone. So apologize for that. Go on.
I don't apologize for that.
I do.
I don't apologize.
That screen went to black for a minute. Those poor people thought, oh my God, the whole world has collapsed. No.
Anyway, they're in the game. 20th Century Fox, which is no longer called that.
Yeah.
20th Century Studios is now a division of the Walt Disney company.
Wild.
And the majors are, it would seem, underrepresented
in a lot of ways.
This year.
We'll see, and again, we'll see what happens. Who knows? Scott and I watched The Eternals last night.
Oh, uh-huh.
I really liked it.
Oh, good.
I really liked it. And it was very different.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you my favorite thing is that almost everyone in the film got to use their own accent,
Mm-hmm.
except for Angelina Jolie, who put in a British or some, I don't know what she's supposed to sound like. But it was nice to hear Richard Madden's gorgeous Scottish accent
Mm-hmm.
and Barry Cogan's Irish accent. It was just really nice to hear those. But yeah, I thought, what did you guys watch The Eternals, and did you like it? The big thing with that was that it was directed and written by Chloe Zhao, and
the still young filmmaker who won a lot of acclaim and awards last year for her film Nomadland,
mm-hmm.
and whose two films prior to that, one of which I saw, the Rider, Sony Classics distributed that. It's a very good movie, but I haven't seen her first feature. But those two films were very small in scale, and even Nomadland is a modest film. And then
this happens.
Going to the Canary Islands to capture scenery that hasn't
and
been
you
seen.
You showed the film in your class.
Yeah, and Chloe came.
And she came, which was very, very cool. But yeah, I know a lot of people felt the film was boring, which I disagree with. I think it's just different.
It is different,
but
it doesn't feel like another Marvel movie.
It doesn't. Well, that's what's kind of funny, is that there were multiple times where obviously they mentioned stuff from the other films because it's all a part of the universe, and I sort of went, oh yeah, she does know who Thanos is, huh? Because this is all part of the. To me, it sort of stood on its own.
Yeah.
But Vincent says, I like the Eternals a lot until No Way Home. It was the first MCU movie post Endgame I liked. Did you like No Way Home as well? Like, were you a fan of that one? We haven't seen that one yet. I'd like to. I would really like to see it. I just, baby. I haven't been able to go out to the movies.
3-month-old.
3-month-old baby. Haven't been able to go to the movies yet. But yeah, I look forward to that. I really like Tom Holland. He's a talented young guy. But yes, I was really happy that we watched it, and I really enjoyed it. And then the most recent episode of Boba Fett was great because it was not about Boba Fett. It was basically an entire episode about the Mandalorian. And I went, well, so are we just going to give up on Boba Fett, just do the Mandalorian? Because I like the Mandalorian. But yeah, that was entertaining. And you were telling me that you watched a handful of things yesterday and the day before.
Yes, watched some old movies. Warner Archive has just reissued and remastered Alfred Hitchcock's Stage Fright from 1949, a film. I guess I saw it when I was doing my due diligence. Okay, got to see every Hitchcock film now. Decades ago, and it did not remain strong in my memory. So it was like seeing it for the first time. And gorgeous new copy, just stunning, sharp, clear, and I liked it. It's a minor film in the Hitchcock canon, better than oeuvre. All right, it's a minor Hitchcock film, I guess by any measure, but a very entertaining one. And it was his first time back in England, first film he made in England in 10 years. He'd been in Hollywood for 10 years. And I think one of the things he must have enjoyed, I have to read the interview in the Truffaut Hitchcock book now. He gave time to these wonderful British character actors who may not have been essential to the storyline, but he wanted to sort of celebrate being there and using them. Most prominently, the great Alastair Sim, but also Joyce Grenfell, Kay Walsh, Miles Malleson. They all have great moments, sometimes more than moments.
Eric says he's been rewatching a lot of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, one of the greatest TV shows ever made. I agree. It's still so good.
I've never been in love with that show because
really?
Twilight Zone to me was the pinnacle.
Okay.
The original Rod Serling Twilight Zone. And I never felt the same affection except of course for Hitchcock's intros.
Well, that's, it's funny, but I guess because I grew up watching, because they used to show
right
Maybe that's why I love it.
Right.
Because I watched it as a little
Right.
kid. Maybe that's why it sings to me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very nice. Davis says, "Hi, Leonard. Love you much. Big fan here." That's so kind.
Thank you. Thank you very
Davis.
much. Now, I want to talk about something that my wife and I got to see ahead of time. It begins airing tonight, I believe, on Showtime.
Yeah.
And this is a 4-part docuseries by the stand-up comic and host W. Kamau Bell called "We Need to Talk About Cosby."
And this was at Sundance, even though it already had distribution. They started showing it there.
It's a very compelling viewing for 4 hours. Yes, we watch it in two chunks. And it I'm the right audience in the sense that, in terms of timing, I remember when Bill Cosby emerged on the scene as a stand-up comic, bright, clean-cut guy, when there was the only black comic, I think, who preceded him in prominence in the white world would be Dick Gregory. And Dick Gregory was heavily political and awfully good. But Bill Cosby just was funny. He picked on, topics that everyone could relate to. They were not race driven. And of course, we all know what happened to him. He became a huge star.
One of the biggest.
The first black actor to star in a primetime TV show, I Spy, with Robert Culp. He knocked off a lot of firsts. He had best-selling comedy albums.
And he inspired many of the biggest comedians today. Many of them will tell you. And
then became beloved. I mean, his success just grew and expanded. And I needn't go on. I think.
And you all know what happened.
Yeah.
And that has been very. When we interview people, it comes up. There are so many folks who you can't. I say can't, but you can't talk about anymore. People they feel funny saying that Bill Cosby was one of their heroes. They feel funny saying that they looked up to Kevin Spacey and folks like that. And what I always say to them is, don't feel bad. And you don't have to give up your memories or your feelings. That's okay. If they mean something to you, then they mean something to you. And it's very hard when something like this happens, especially to the extent of Bill Cosby, but just in general. And there's no fault and there's no judgment.
Anyway, it's very thorough. 4 hours. Some of it's extremely uncomfortable to watch because he interviews a fair number of the women who were drugged and raped by Mr. Cosby, and
what can you say?
Yeah, and they tell their story, and then there's the aftermath of that and the reactions to that. It's in terms of measuring our culture and our popular culture both. It's very compelling and very well done.
Yeah.
And W. Kamau Bell is a very bright guy, but he's not a documentarian. That's not his full-time occupation. But,
sure.
And I'm sure he worked with a good team of people. But the end result is first rate.
There you go.
First rate.
Thoughts on the Gilded Age and Rifkin's Festival? Well, did you watch Gilded Age?
I kind of half watched it.
Yeah.
I walked in while Alice was watching, and I was pulled into it because it is a fascinating era.
Well, first of all, it's any musical theater nerd's dream because there's so many fantastic Broadway people in it.
Well, there's Audra McDonald, and there's
Christine Baranski,
Donna Murphy.
Donna. Yeah, it's a dream for many of us. But yeah, I liked it. I'm intrigued to see where it goes. Mm-hmm. And the lead is yet another Streep daughter. There are so many Streeps running around, though she goes by, she doesn't go by Gummer. Does she go by Gummer? Because the other two, Meryl Streep's two eldest daughters are her twins. They look so much like their mother. And when this show started and I looked, I thought, well, that, she looks like she could be one of them. Maybe she's a cousin. Yeah. So she goes by Jacobson.
Okay.
Louisa Jacobson, but she is another one of Meryl Streep's daughters. And that's why she's so good, because, wow, the genes in that family. But yeah, I liked it. I'm intrigued to see where it goes. Rifkin's Festival, I did not watch. You and Mommy did.
It's not very good. It's not very good. And I say this as a Woody Allen camp follower of long standing. And but the film's release Friday on VOD and in a handful of theaters here in LA, it's at the Landmark, gave us an opportunity to interview him for our podcast.
We interviewed Woody Allen last week. And
wow.
Yeah. Craig says, I love the interview with Woody. I'm glad to hear he has a new book coming. Yeah. Man, oh man. Sorry, someone just, wow, Brian, that's really cruel. I'm sorry that this person has written, please cover up your tattoos next time you do the podcast. Jesse, I find it really disgusting to look at. Tough. This is what I look like, and I have tattoos. And that is ridiculously unkind. So if you don't like them, you can just not watch, okay? Go ahead. We're talking about getting to interview Woody Allen.
Yep. Well, this is the world in which we live.
Yeah.
People are very judgy on matters large and small.
Yep. But Woody Allen, that was, I have to tell you, I have never seen I shouldn't say never. I've seen it happen two times. When we interviewed Mel Brooks, which was
5 years ago,
one of the greatest experiences of our lives.
At his office.
And he held my hand through about half of it. And that is one of the greatest afternoons of our life. And when we finished, we walked into the hall and my dad started to hyperventilate. And he said, I can't believe, even though you'd interviewed him before.
I'd interviewed him. I even hosted a tribute to him at the Academy.
We met him a handful of times.
I'd spent good time with him. But somehow the nature of this interview and the intimacy of the setting. And I said to Jesse, you got to understand, I've been aware of him and I've been a fan of his since I was 12. And I saw, his first short, the Oscar-winning short, The Critic, that he made with Ernie Pintoff, on a bill with Dr. Strangelove at my hometown movie theater. That's how long he's been part of my consciousness, part of my life, and not very different with Woody Allen. A lifelong presence, and so I can't be blasé or even pretend to be blasé.
And he's very warm. And he's very kind. And we just we had an incredible time with him.
Yeah.
But that was...
And in fact, Woody and Mel worked together on the Sid Caesar show back in the 50s.
I can't even imagine. Imagine.
Yeah.
But anyway, so interviewing Woody, they say I've only seen it a handful of times when my dad gets nervous or is overwhelmed. You were so nervous as we sat there, and you just sort of, as I say, I'm not used to seeing my dad.
Well, I was weighing my words very carefully. I wanted to sound intelligent. I wanted to,
like, you have to worry about. I know.
Well, no. I mean, I wanted the questions to have some heft. But he was completely at ease.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience. It was a great experience.
It's, and my mom sat in to listen to us. And when it ended, she just said, well, that was a masterclass. Listening to him was a masterclass. It was an incredible experience. And to have an hour with him was just, yeah, really, really special. And I'm so glad that we got to do that.
Yeah.
And you got to have another opportunity to ask him the questions you wanted to ask him.
I interviewed him once before when The Curse of the Jade Scorpion came out. And he was here in LA for one day. And he played at the Jazz Bakery for one night. And my late pal, Bonnie Teagle at Entertainment Tonight, managed to book that interview. So I have a picture of me with Woody.
Which is wild, right? It's just incredible. As I say,
I didn't get to ask him about the comic strip.
No, I know. Well, there's so many questions, there's so many questions.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you do interviews with performers, directors when you don't like the film they're promoting? That is an excellent question.
We discuss other things.
Yeah, we talk about other stuff. That's basically it.
We always do our job, which is to mention and therefore plug whatever they're promoting, because we want to play fair.
Yeah, that's our part of the deal. When someone offers you, when a publicist comes to you, to give you a sense of the process, that's generally how it works. Is a publicist sends an email and says, we have so and so and so and so available. They're promoting this film or this TV show, whatever it is. Would you like to interview them? And in some cases, we've seen the movie or show. In other cases, they're coming out and they will send us a link to watch ahead of time. Other times we don't. But basically that's it, is we sort of look at things and say, okay, well, this person's interesting, and when we don't like a movie, we can still ask a million questions because filmmaking is still really interesting. You can still ask an actor, how did you find your character? How did you, how did you feel?
And it happens in my class too, because I often haven't seen the film ahead of time. That Alex Ago, my colleague at USC, who does all the heavy lifting for that class. If we know that the guest is going to be interesting or have encountered the guest before, we say, well, we hope the film is good.
Yeah.
But if the guest is good, that'll validate the evening.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So we really, I'm grateful that, we're not, our show, our podcast, we are not a nightly TV show where you have to interview absolutely everyone who's coming through. The people we choose because we like them.
Yeah.
So we're not going to have someone on that we don't like, so it's the kind of thing where, you didn't like Rifkin's Festival, but you can still, talk about it and talk to him.
Yeah.
And it's worthwhile. Have you ever interviewed Neil Simon or John Hughes?
Never got to even meet John Hughes, sorry to say. But I did get to interview Neil Simon once. And
here in New York.
Here. Mm-hmm. He kept an apartment as his office to have a separate workspace.
Sure.
And I got to go to that workspace and talk to him.
How long ago, you think?
Oh, gosh.
Was it the 80s or later?
Probably 90s.
Jeez.
Probably 90s.
You have interviewed a lot of people,
Daddy. An awful lot of folks.
A lot of people.
An awful lot of folks.
What is your favorite Woody Allen film? Craig's saying his favorites are Manhattan, Annie Hall, Sleeper, Deconstructing Harry.
All of those.
Yeah.
Plus, I got to see him on Broadway in Play It Again, Sam.
Yep.
The show he wrote for himself and performed, and that introduced him to Diane Keaton.
Yeah.
And then Herbert Ross directed the film version of that. And I love that piece. And well, of course, Casablanca is my favorite movie, so I'm prejudiced, I guess. But having enjoyed it on Broadway, I enjoyed the movie equally as much. And though it's not considered a Woody Allen movie, I think that's almost a technicality because it's a very good Woody Allen movie, and proven proven material.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
who would you interview if you could interview anybody? I ask you folks, if you could talk to anybody, who would you want to talk to? Because I'll tell you, my dad. Have you interviewed Eddie Murphy?
well,
Not like officially,
no,
but
I've met him, and he's been nice,
yeah,
but not open.
yeah.
Not open
Yeah.
and receptive to.
We were supposed to interview him when he was doing all of the press for Dolomite, and then it just didn't
Yeah,
happen.
it dissipated.
And
The moment passed.
I would still love to. I would love to sit with him. I think that would be very cool. As folks are saying, Orson Welles, Walt Disney, Jack Nicholson is actually my dad's.
Yeah.
When I ask him, I say, if you could interview anyone, who would it be? You've said Jack.
And again,
Nicholson.
I've met him casually and spoken to him.
Yeah.
For, just small talk for a couple of minutes. And I don't know if it counts as a meeting, but I did share a moment about that big with Orson Welles. We were boarding a plane.
Better than nothing.
At JFK at the same time.
Better than nothing.
He was enormous then, and he was being wheeled up to the up the jetway. And when we got to the actual entrance to the plane,
yeah,
the nice woman wheeling him said, "Do you need more assistance, Mr. Welles?" He said, "No, I can take it from here." And he hoisted himself up, and we would have been sort of bumping into each other, and he gestured for me to go. I said, "No, after you, Mr. Welles."
That was you. Hey, you had
That's
a moment. You had a moment. You had a moment with Orson Welles. Yeah. That's more than most of us.
Yeah.
Kevin's saying Jerry Lewis.
Oh well, I'm very lucky. Jerry, when I was, I say this many times. When I was a kid, I thought the sun rose and set on Jerry Lewis.
And you're not even French.
And the fact that I got to spend so much time with him, and on so many different occasions.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was so kind and generous to me.
Yeah.
Means an awful lot.
Yeah. When someone says, who are you starstruck by? My answer is everyone, because I just am. But there will always be something about the people you grew up loving.
Sure.
So you could see someone from a TV show you watched as a kid, and you will lose your mind because of the meaning that they have to you. And so not everybody's going to have the same one. But that's always amazed me. So, you see the cast of, if you're on my age, the cast of Boy Meets World. When I saw all of them at a bar one night, lost my mind. Ryder Strong, Ben Savage, that was the end. I was thrilled because I'd watched them since I was a kid. We got some other good. Eric says, my dream of heaven is having a drink with Orson Welles and Peter O'Toole and dancing with Kate Winslet. That is a solid dream, my friend. Jonathan's asking if you ever interviewed the Disney the animators from the Disney Renaissance era, like Glenn Keane and Andreas Deja. Yes.
I've gotten to know Andreas pretty well over the years.
Oh yeah.
And in fact, we did a commentary track together for Sleeping Beauty, for the first Blu-ray, I think.
We have.
Sleeping Beauty.
I've known Andreas most of my life. We have to have him on the show. He's one of my favorite people.
Yeah. And Glenn Keane, I never got to know as well, but I just wrote the text for a book accompanying his latest movie, the one that he directed, called Over the Moon, and spent a lot of time talking to him.
Yeah.
And he's just such an impressive guy, and he was a guest in my class.
Yeah, he's very special. Robert says, great minds, Leonard, because we both would want to interview Jack Nicholson. I get it. Alan says Billy Wilder.
I met him once, and I did a telephone interview with him on one occasion.
That's one of your other heroes.
Yeah. We were at an Academy tribute to his old friend Fred Zinnemann, another European emigre who made good in Hollywood. And so there's Billy Wilder, and I knew that at the time Entertainment Tonight had approached him for different interviews, and he'd always said no. So I went over to introduce myself, And, said to me, he said, well, he says, this is a night for Freddie. I said, well, yes, but I'm also really happy to get a chance to meet you. He said, and what is it you do? I said, well, you should pardon the expression, but I work in television. He said, no, as long as you're working. and that, of course, had a double meaning in the sense, because he wasn't working. I mean, he was working, probably writing, but no one was producing what he was writing at that point, which is kind of sad.
Oh man, a bunch
Maybe
of different.
Bittersweet is the word.
Yeah, Jonathan says Robert Wise. Mel Brooks, Steven Spielberg. There's so many, right? There's so many interesting people. This one says I'd want to interview Norma Shearer and Joan Crawford at the same time. That would be intense.
I don't know if they would go along with that idea. I don't know if they would have ascended.
Frank says Robert Evans, another good one.
I did an interview with Robert Evans for the TCM Classic Film Festival, and I did 2 interviews actually that
and
weekend.
I hung out with his bodyguard. I
interviewed him twice that weekend, and he was so excited because Sumner Redstone came to watch.
It was a big deal.
One of them. Maybe Chinatown, perhaps. And he was quite a character, of course. And talk about a larger-than-life character. If you've never heard the audio book of his autobiography, The Kid Stays in the Picture, I can't recommend it highly enough. By the time they made the documentary film, he'd had a stroke. And while he regained most of his speech, he's a little reduced. He's a little diminished by the time they recorded that soundtrack. So you really owe yourself the favor of listening to him in full command, telling his own story, the audiobook. Oh, man.
It's wild. And part of it, as we always say, is timing, because are people still alive? It's like I've said, I'm very fortunate to have met a lot of the Disney people that my dad has interviewed through the years, because they were still around when I was younger, and most of them are gone now. It's a fortunate thing, and right place, right time. Teresa says, thank you for sharing your Woody stories. I'm such a huge fan, and sometimes have people question me on this, as you were discussing it earlier. I remain a huge fan, and his movies make me happy. I'm so glad. It is what it is. I will say that I really hope that one day things get cleared up, but until then, you are allowed to, have your heroes be your heroes. Ryan says, I like that you interviewed Mr. Deja for the Walt Disney Treasures, Mickey Mouse in Living Color Volume 2. Yes. He's, as I say, Andreas
is so articulate, eloquent on the subject of animation in general.
Yeah.
But he knows and understands the nuances of every pencil line in every drawing. Especially by the 9 old men.
Also,
great Disney animators.
Once you know his face, you see it when you're looking at Scar or you're looking at Jafar. It is Andreas 100%. Watch him. It is him, and I love it. Dana, hi Dana. She's sad to see those icons and legends gone. It is hard. It's hard to see these people go. It's heartbreaking. At the same time, we're lucky we had them at all. Mark says Chaplin, of course, Chaplin. Craig says, Stan Laurel, Stephen Sondheim. Yeah, there's so many people, right? It's, many dreams. Myrna says, Sleeping Beauty is my favorite Disney movie. What's yours? And who is your favorite Disney legend that you have interviewed?
My favorite is Dumbo. Short, sweet, perfect. And I think underappreciated because it is so unpretentious. It's like 64 minutes long. It's a simple story.
Heartbreaking.
Yes, it brings me to tears every time. And then there's the pink elephants on parade sequence, which is just mind blowing. uh, it's a hell of a film. There is the awkwardness of the black characters who who cause offense to some African American viewers today, and I understand. I understand. I can only. I mean, it's
gonna lose the paper.
It's what people call, and rightly so, casual racism.
Yeah.
Not overtly malicious in its intent. In fact, not malicious at all in its intent, but that doesn't mean there isn't, something amiss in the mindset, that existed then.
Yeah.
But the song is joyful. The song they sing is joyful.
It is.
And
when I see an elephant fly,
and the camaraderie of those characters, is joyful.
George is saying he'd interview Daniel Day-Lewis, and it probably wouldn't be easy. I will tell you, we've met him, and just to speak to, very nice, but I cannot imagine if you actually needed to get things out of him.
Well, no, I've talked to him.
But it depends on, I think, when do you meet him? What's your setting?
Right.
Is he in character for something? Lord help you. But he's a great actor.
I said this the other night to my class. It's because we had a costume designer as our guest last week. The woman who worked on Power of the Dog. And she was a very good guest. And they asked her some very good questions. But I talked about years ago, I had a costume designer in class who was considered a great costume designer, but completely inarticulate about what she did. And that's not part of the job.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Robert De Niro is one of the greatest actors who ever lived.
And he hates doing interviews.
And, does he have to be a great interview too?
No.
Is that on the job requirement list?
No. He can just be who he is.
Yeah.
1 second. Sorry, guys. Just gonna go back up. Did you like Tarzan? I think Tarzan's lovely. The film.
I like Tarzan.
It's a good one. The Phil Collins music is great. And I enjoy that very much. Carol. So Carol's asking how you listen to our podcast. You don't feel funny about asking. It's called Maltin on Movies, and you can get it everywhere that podcasts exist. So you can get it from Apple. You can get it
iTunes.
That's Apple.
Apple is who doesn't know that?
If you type in Maltin on Movies, it'll have all the different
places. Or you can go to my website, leonardmaltin.com.
Yeah, that's also.
And there's a hot link in the right-hand column.
So it's a good one to find. Hopefully simple enough. And we've been doing it for 6 years, which I honestly can't quite believe. Craig's asking, have you been keeping up with the weekly Let's Talk to Lucy shows? This week was Mitzi Gaynor. Any favorites of the episodes so far?
I have fallen behind. I listened to a handful when they first released them, and I've been meaning to, just sit down and listen. But I tend to listen. I tend to listen to stuff like that when I'm driving, and I'm not driving anywhere right now. I work at home.
It's true for a lot of people. Okay, Rose says, hi guys, I recently watched The Father. I'm a bit behind the times. I found it to be depressing and confronting, but ultimately a fine picture. Anthony Hopkins brought in a powerhouse performance. What a talent he is and has been for such a long time. Absolutely. This week I asked folks to tell me what they have enjoyed watching recently. What's one of the best things they've watched? And The Father, I think, very much fits that. Don't watch it if you're sad. I would say. Don't watch it if you're having a bad day.
It's a film that rings so true.
Yeah.
And his performance is one reason.
Yeah. Tony says, sink the Bismarck. I respect the war genre again. Well done, Churchill. Fair enough. Max's question for Jesse and Leonard. I finally saw Ghost Watch this past weekend, the infamous 1992 horror mockumentary, which only aired once on British television on Halloween and was later banned/suppressed by the BBC. Leonard, did you ever see it and or cover the incident on Entertainment Tonight?
No.
And Jesse, are you or your husband familiar with it? they really, really liked it. No, I don't know this, but now I'm intrigued. Now I am intrigued, and I will look it up, and I will see what I can find. I love that. Do you have a favorite episode of The Adventures of Superman with George Reeves? Well,
Oh, it's been such a long time. Gosh, I used to inhale those. I watched them over and over and over again, and they never wore out their welcome. And gosh, I can't. And by the way, I grew up in New Jersey. So when I moved here to Los Angeles, and though I'd read this before, but when I realized driving downtown that City Hall is the Daily Planet, it, my heart skipped a beat. That's all I can say.
I love it. Okay, if you could choose any movie to watch with your family and friends in a movie theater, which would you choose? I'm trying to choose between Age of Summerhood, Cocoon, Some Like It Hot, and Sneakers for my 40th birthday.
Well, that's an interesting variety.
Yeah.
You can't really go wrong.
I will say seeing Some Like It Hot on a big screen is pretty fantastic. But I don't know. I think it just depends. What you should just think about is what makes you smile the most.
Some Like It Hot is a damn good choice.
It's never a bad time for that movie.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love that? 1 second. Oh yes, Ryan got to see Casablanca at AMC theaters because they did an 80th anniversary
the
showing.
Fathom screenings.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Oh, has Casablanca been your favorite film since you first saw it?
Yes.
Yeah.
At around age 16.
And would you want to participate in the audio commentary for its home video release? That would be nice, but I think it's already happened. If you want to hear my dad talk about Casablanca, that's not hard to do.
Just tap me on the shoulder.
He will tell you anything you want to know. He loves that movie so much, and rightfully so. Let's see. Hi, what do you think about the Ritz brothers? I love them. Are they still famous in the USA? I'm from Germany here, and they're absolutely unknown.
Well, they're all but unknown here.
Yeah.
They are not much celebrated, and they don't have, unfortunately, one sort of signature film.
Yeah.
The one that comes closest is their version of the Three Musketeers,
which is great.
Which is really good.
Great.
It's a really good movie. It was made as sort of a B or B plus movie, or as Bill Everson used to say, a shaky A.
Yeah.
But Don Amici is D'Artagnan, and they are, Athos, Porthos, and Aramis. And it's well cast. Gloria Stewart is in it, and the production values are first rate, and it's a wonderful showcase for them. It's not them doing their nightclub shtick, which I love, but that you have to take in dribs and drabs from a variety of other movies. And no, they're little known or remembered except by a handful, and I say that advisedly, a handful of true believers.
I wish more people knew them. They're so much fun to watch.
They are fun.
And the last one I'm going to do is Jerry says, have you ever been to the Oscars?
Well, in a sense, yes. I've done everything but sit down and watch the show in person. Which
is what we like to do. You could probably go if you wanted to. You could go if you wanted to. But I'll be honest with you, sitting through award shows is not a lot of fun, because you are stuck sitting and you can't move, and it's a lot.
And they're long.
And they are long. And this isn't even one that has food at the table. Like this isn't even one where like you could at least be noshing as you're sitting there for 3 hours. So you've worked the Oscars for 30, probably as long as you were at ET.
Yeah.
And I've been down on the red carpet with you most of my life. And we've gotten to cover night of, we've gotten to be there at the red carpet night of, we've gotten to go into the press room, all sorts of stuff.
We've gotten to congratulate people leaving
as they're coming
the
out,
governor's ball,
holding
clutching their gold statuette.
And that's very, very cool. We got to hug, we're friendly with Barry Jenkins, and we got to see him as he exited the theater holding his Academy Award. And I took a picture of the two of them, which is one of my favorite things. So yeah, we have not sat through, but we've done everything else, and it's more fun that way. Kyle saying, I wonder when they will announce the host or hosts for the Oscars. Lord, I do not know.
No.
I don't know what they're going to try to do. It's so silly. Yeah.
Recently, a friend gave me these actually for a Christmas gift, and happened to choose ones that I didn't already have in my collection.
Yeah.
There are a lot of these. These are pennants, felt pennants that on some of them says patent pending. Patent for what? Anyway, celebrating early silent film stars like Sidney Drew, who with his wife, billed as Mr. and Mrs. Sidney Drew, did a series of very amusing situation comedy shorts. Here's Francis X. Bushman, one of the notable leading men, and who's the subject of a new book called This is Francis X. Bushman, and a accompanying documentary which aired on TCM. He's Masala in the silent film version of Ben-Hur.
Interesting.
And lived long enough to be a guest on the Adam West Batman.
Ha! I like that. This is Florence.
Here's Florence Lawrence, often referred to as the first movie star, the first person to be advertised by name at a time when they believed that was a bad idea, because then they would just want more money.
Yeah.
People knew who they were.
What did it say? I can't read that. Can you? No. No, I don't think it's even letters anymore there. Underneath. Huh.
And here's Lottie Pickford. There's also Jack Pickford, who was Mary's brother. Lottie was her sister or half-sister. I'm embarrassed not to know that off the top of my head. But Annie Pickford did okay in those days. And here's photograph star Anita Stewart, who was subsequently promoted to continuing stardom by a former New England exhibitor turned entrepreneur, Louis B. Mayer. He was the first star that he attached himself to on his rise to power.
Pretty cool, right? Catherine says, what's your favorite Harold Lloyd film?
Oh, the latest one I've seen.
Yeah.
It's I don't mean to be flippant. It's either The Freshman or Safety Last or The Kid Brother or For Heaven's Sake. They're all great. They're all great.
It's, so there's someone where I've asked my dad before, why isn't he more famous? Why don't more people know who he is? And similar thing, you said he's sort of...
Well, Harold Lloyd, the good part of his story is that he owned his movies.
Mm-hmm.
So he controlled the rights to his films and derived, income from them whenever they were shown. He was never cheated in any way.
Yeah.
But he kept them off television, and he kept them out of circulation for many, many years. As it turns out, too many years. And so there was a gap. And when I was growing up watching Laurel and Hardy on TV every day, that's how I knew them. And even Charlie Chaplin, who controlled most of his great movies, didn't control his early ones. So those were shown, and I could buy 8mm prints to show to my friends.
Yeah.
But Harold Lloyd was kind of, off the table and out of sight, out of mind. And then finally, he did do a compilation called Harold Lloyd's World of Comedy that opened in theaters in the early 60s. And that started to bring him back to recognition.
Yeah.
But it's been an uphill fight.
Thankfully, his granddaughter, Suzanne Lloyd, is she keeps the flame burning. She's incredible. She's an incredible woman. And she was raised in part by her grandfather.
Yes. Her grandparents essentially raised her. And so she grew up at Green Acres,
mm-hmm.
his legendary home and estate in Beverly Hills.
And, talk about having a piece of living history. To speak to her and have her be able to tell you, what it was like with her grandfather. And it's very special. But she does so much to keep his name alive. And yeah, we're very lucky that she exists, because without her, I don't know what would happen with much of her grandfather's stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, Kyle, that's really exciting. Kyle says he watched Casablanca in theaters. He got to go and see it in theaters, and he was struck by how many people showed up to watch it. It was sold out, and we all clapped at the end.
Oh, great.
That's wonderful.
That's the way to do it.
That is exactly how these movies were meant to be seen.
And how could you not applaud at the end of that film?
No. And I'm sure you know, but one of everyone's favorite stories about Casablanca is that last line wasn't put in. That's not the last line as it was shot. They found,
they had their choice,
and they chose what they did, and it worked. It worked out for them. There's so many stories. Casablanca is one of those where everybody's got a story. I heard, I read, but that's one of the few that's true. They did not know what the last line of the film was going to be as they walked off into the mist.
At one point, my boss at ET wanted me to do like movies in a minute. And a minute tribute to Casablanca. Mm-hmm. Very hard to do. They usually came in a little longer than a minute. But so I did one night. And the next morning, I'm at my desk at ET at the Paramount studio. And the phone rings. I pick it up. And a kind of a gruff voice says, Leonard Maltin? I said, yeah. I said, this is Hal Wallace. Just want to thank you for the nice things you said about Casablanca last night. Hal B. Wallace, head of production at Warner Brothers, the man who personally produced Casablanca and dozens of other classic movies. So we had a nice chat. And I asked if I sent my copy of his autobiography to him down in the desert where he was living, would he be willing to sign it? He said, absolutely. And I sent him Xeroxes of a couple of stills, behind the scenes stills, where I didn't know how to identify some of the people, which he did for me. So that was a wonderful.
See, again, it's amazing timing
aftermath.
Because he was still around, and you could do that. All right, the last one I'll read is I love of Mice and Magic. Thank you. Do you have a favorite Looney Tunes / Merry Melodies cartoon? I know it's hard to pick one.
Wabbit Twubble.
Wabbit Twubble is one of the best.
My favorite Bugs Bunny Elmer Fudd cartoon, directed by Bob Clampett. And it doesn't play as well to my students as some of Chuck Jones' smarter cartoons do. The broad slapstick doesn't appeal to them as much as the cleverness of some of Chuck's cartoons. But I still love Wabbit Twubble.
It's a good one. As always, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We love spending our Sundays with you. Evanier says, what is your favorite movie that has Charles Lane in it? Listen, Evanier.
All of the, but well, I just saw the most recent one I saw. I watched, talked about this last week, watched You Can't Take It With You. Frank Capra always gave him a good part, and this is no exception.
Man.
So there you are.
So yeah, thank you as always for joining us. We will be here next Sunday with you all. We really appreciate you taking the time. Again, thank you to everybody who's joined our Patreon, which we lovingly call Maltreon. It's easy to find, but yeah, we're very, very grateful to all of you. So
I got a really nice email today from someone who just read the latest column. I wrote a column and a collectibles column every month that only goes to Patreon supporters, and I put a lot of myself into that.
You do. I love that.
I have fun doing it.
Man, all right, everybody, take care. We'll speak to you soon.
Be kind.